Welcome to Cold Case Secrets, where silence hides the darkest truths. Tonight, we uncover the chilling story of Katie Harts. It was a freezing night in December 2000, the kind of night when the world goes quiet and the snow swallows every sound. Somewhere along Snow Road, Ohio, 25-year-old Katie Harts was driving home, headlights cutting through the blizzard, a call to her mother promising she'd be there soon. But Katie never made it home. When morning came, her car was gone. No tracks in the snow, no phone signal, just silence, and a mother's porch light that never went out for 23 long years. They searched the rivers, the woods, the roads, nothing. Until one September morning, when a group of volunteer divers made a discovery that would shake an entire town and reveal the truth buried beneath decades of water and lies. This is the story of Katie Harts, a daughter, a sister, a fighter, and the betrayal that hid just 3 doors away. You're watching Cold Case Secrets, where the past never truly stays buried. Before we open this cold case, take a moment to subscribe, because every week, we uncover the stories the world tried to forget. It was September 2023, 23 years after a young woman vanished during a winter storm in Ohio. For over 2 decades, her family had lived with one question that refused to fade. Where is Katie? That morning, the river was calm, silver against the dawn. Volunteer divers from a small nonprofit called Hope in Depth lowered their sonar scanner into the murky current. They had no idea they were about to uncover the truth that police, detectives, and an entire community had missed for years. 30 feet below the surface, beneath decades of silt and silence, a shape emerged on the monitor, the unmistakable outline of a vehicle. A blue Honda CR-V, the same car that vanished on a snow-covered road in the winter of 2000. For the team on the boat, the world seemed to stop. The divers descended into the cold darkness. Their lights cut through the water. And there, frozen in time, lay the missing piece of a mystery that had haunted Snow Road for nearly a generation. Inside that car were answers, and one of those answers would lead straight to the front door of a man who had pretended to help all along. The night she vanished, December 12th, 2000, Snow Road, Ohio. It was one of the worst blizzards the region had seen in years. Winds howled through the trees, and white flakes coated the narrow country roads like sheets of glass. Most people had long since gone inside. Fireplaces burning, cars parked safely, the hum of Christmas lights flickering through frosted windows. But one person was still out there, 25-year-old Katie Harts. She had just finished her shift at a local bookstore and called her mother, Carmen, at 9:45 p.m. She told her she'd be home soon. She was only a few miles away. Carmen remembered her voice clearly, calm, a little tired, but upbeat. It was a simple call, just another night. But it was the last time anyone would ever hear from Katie again. At 10:27 p.m., a traffic camera on the Snow Road Bridge captured a blurry image of her blue Honda CR-V heading south, snow blowing across the lens, headlights cutting through the storm. That grainy image would become the last confirmed sighting of her alive. By morning, Katie was gone. No trace, no car, no footprints in the snow. The search. When Katie didn't come home, Carmen's worry turned to panic. By dawn, she called the local sheriff's office. Deputies checked the main roads first, thinking maybe her car had slid into a ditch. But hours passed, then days, then weeks. There was no sign of her. Helicopters scanned the nearby woods and frozen lakes. Search parties combed through the blizzard's aftermath, dragging flashlights through the dark, shouting her name into the emptiness. Nothing. Not a single tire mark. Not a piece of glass. Not a sound. News outlets across Ohio picked up the story. Young woman vanishes during snowstorm. Carmen appeared on local TV, her voice shaking, begging for information. Her son, Miguel organized community searches, putting up flyers from one end of the county to the other. But as winter turned to spring, the story faded, and with it, the hope that Katie was still alive. The family that never stopped. Some families move on after tragedy. Carmen couldn't. Every night, she left the porch light on. In case Katie find her way home, she'd tell neighbors. Miguel, her brother, spent years studying maps, rivers, and search reports, convinced there was something investigators had missed. They never changed her room. Her books, her favorite mug, even her coat still hung by the door. The family's life had frozen in that same winter. And yet, one person seemed oddly calm through it all. Their neighbor, Richard Hale. He lived just 3 doors down. He'd helped in the initial search. He'd brought Carmen food. He'd even comforted her after vigils. Everyone thought he was just a kind neighbor, a quiet man who'd lived in the area for years. But over time, Miguel noticed something. Richard asked too many questions. About the search radius. About police evidence. He even seemed to know details that hadn't been made public. It was a passing thought at the time, nothing more. But years later, it would all make sense. The trail grows cold. By 2005, the case had gone cold. Detectives had long since boxed up the files, labeling it unsolved disappearance. There were rumors. Maybe she'd run away. Maybe she'd been kidnapped. Maybe she'd fallen into the river during the storm. But Carmen refused to believe any of it. Her daughter would never just leave. She visited the police station every year on December 12th, asking the same question. Have you found her yet? The answer was always no. For 23 years, she held on to that porch light. For 23 years, Miguel searched every riverbank and wooded road near Snow Road. And for 23 years, Richard Hale lived among them, watching, waiting, pretending he cared. The river's secret. Then, in September 2023, everything changed. A group called Hope in Depth, volunteer divers who specialize in cold cases, arrived in Ohio. They had solved similar disappearances before using advanced sonar imaging. Miguel reached out to them, desperate but skeptical. Still, they agreed to help. On the morning of September 16th, they launched their boat near the Route 7 bridge, just a few miles from where Katie was last seen. The sonar feed appeared on the monitor, a slow sweep of the riverbed, nothing but silt and debris. Then suddenly a shape, rectangular, metal, a car. A chill spread through the group. They locked onto the coordinates, and divers descended into the cold, dark current. It didn't take long. Beneath 23 years of mud, there it was, the faded outline of a blue Honda CR-V. The same car Katie had driven the night she vanished. Inside, still strapped in her seat, were human remains. For the first time in over 2 decades, the Harts family had an answer, but not peace. Because the car didn't just hold Katie. It held clues. The seatbelt had been cut. Her skull showed signs of blunt force trauma. And the passenger side window, smashed from the inside. This wasn't an accident. It was murder. And when forensic techs lifted DNA from the steering wheel, the truth began to rise from the depths, like something long buried that refused to stay hidden. For 23 years, the Ohio River had guarded its secret. Now, it had finally spoken. But what it revealed would send shockwaves through Snow Road and expose a betrayal so twisted it shattered everything the Harts family believed about trust, kindness, and the people closest to them. A killer in plain sight. The DNA results came back within days. There was no mistake. The profile matched a familiar name from the original case file, Richard Hale. The same man who had lived 3 doors down from Katie's mother. The man who had joined the search parties. The man who'd spoken kindly at the memorial vigil. For 23 years, he'd walked the same streets, waved to the same neighbors, and shared coffee with Carmen, while knowing exactly where Katie was. Investigators reopened the file. As they retraced the timeline of December 12th, 2000, every missing detail began to click into place. Phone records showed that after Katie's call to her mother, she'd received another call, lasting only 42 seconds, from an unlisted number. That number belonged to Richard Hale. He claimed back then that he was at home watching the weather, nowhere near Snow Road. But new phone tower data revealed his cell had pinged from a location less than a mile from where Katie disappeared. And the most chilling discovery? When detectives searched his garage, they found an old snow shovel with traces of paint that matched Katie's Honda. The truth was unraveling, quietly, methodically, and it all pointed to one thing. Katie never left Snow Road alive. The night of the storm, through interviews, lab reports, and the chilling confessions of neighbors, investigators began to piece together what had really happened that night. Katie had driven home from work, taking her usual route down Snow Road. But visibility was terrible, almost zero. Somewhere near the bridge, she saw a familiar figure flagging her down, Richard Hale. He told her his truck had stalled and asked for help. Katie, always kind-hearted, pulled over. What happened next could only be pieced together from the evidence found years later. Inside the car, there were signs of a struggle, fragments of hair, blood on the steering wheel, a broken watch belonging to Richard. The cut seatbelt suggested he'd attacked her while she tried to escape. A blunt strike to the head, the fracture that ended her life. Afterward, in the middle of the snowstorm, Hale dragged her body back in her car, rolled it toward the bridge, and pushed it into the freezing current. The storm covered his tracks, and the river swallowed the evidence. For 23 winters, it lay buried in silence. The arrest. When police knocked on Richard Hale's door in 2023, he opened it with the same quiet smile his neighbors knew so well. He didn't ask why they were there. He just said one sentence. I wondered how long it would take. Inside his house, officers found old newspaper clippings about the disappearance, neatly stacked in a drawer. He'd kept them all. Every headline, every anniversary piece, every plea from the family. As they led him away in handcuffs, Carmen stood across the street, frozen. This was the man who had comforted her when her daughter went missing. The man who had hugged her after every failed search. Now she was seeing him for what he truly was, a predator who had hidden behind compassion. When the story broke, Snow Road erupted in disbelief. Reporters flooded the small town. Neighbors spoke in whispers. He helped us search for her. He was always so polite. But beneath the calm mask, Richard Hale had spent 23 years living with a secret buried under ice and time. The trial. In 2024, the courtroom in Cuyahoga County was packed. Carmen and Miguel sat in the front row every day, clutching each other's hands as the prosecution laid out the evidence. The DNA on the steering wheel, the cut seatbelt fibers, the matching paint chips from Hale's snow shovel. The phone call placed to Katie moments before she vanished. Piece by piece, the picture was undeniable. And when Miguel took the stand, his voice cracked as he looked at Hale and said, "You took my sister, but you never took our faith that she'd be found." After 3 weeks, the verdict came. Guilty. Life in prison without parole. The courtroom fell silent. Carmen wept, not out of joy, not even relief, but from a weight finally released after decades of waiting in the dark. The porch light. In the months that followed, reporters came from all over to interview the family. They asked Carmen the same question again and again. How did you keep believing for so long? She always gave the same answer. Because a mother knows. You can't turn off love. The porch light that had burned for 23 years still glowed every night. But this time, it wasn't to guide Katie home. It was to honor her memory, a symbol of patience, love, and justice delayed but not denied. Miguel joined Hope in Depth, the same volunteer diving group that had found his sister. He said he wanted to help other families who were still waiting for answers. And every December 12th, the people of Snow Road gather at the riverbank. They release lanterns into the night sky, one for each year Katie was missing. As they rise, hundreds of tiny lights shimmer against the water, just above the place where the truth was finally found. The lesson beneath the ice. The Snow Road Betrayal is more than a solved case. It's a reminder of how predators weaponize kindness, how evil can disguise itself as empathy, and how technology can resurrect justice even after decades of silence. Forensic science gave the Harts family what the snowstorm had stolen. Persistence gave them closure, and faith, the kind that never gives up, gave them light. Because in every cold case, there's always a story buried under time and loss. And sometimes, when the right eyes finally look, the river gives it back.
Don't let the trail go cold. Subscribe to Cold Case Secrets.